Drew. This week we're checking out a pretty cool game. We're checking out Ravenlok over on the Xbox. This is an RPG adventure game, and I'm going to say right off the bat, this is geared towards, I'd say, maybe the younger audience. This may be more of an introductory RPG game,
Sure.
but nonetheless, this is a pretty cool one. It has a definite art style that I think drew both of us in right away because it's this kind of half pixelated voxel art style that they've put a lot of effort into because there's a ton of detail into this game and it just looks awesome. That's the first thing that kind of got me here, and we'll discuss a few other things down the road here, what I liked and some of the things I didn't like. But what were your first impressions of Ravenlok, Drew?
First impression is just the way you said, right? The hop, right? That whole art style is the hook. That was kind of what drew me in to find out what is going on here in this story. And it is a little, dude, it's like Alice in Wonderland in a voxel art style, right? You get that feeling, that charm, that personality right off the hop when you get into this world. And you start in one spot, but then you kind of get teleported in this magical kind of set piece. And then from there, it's got this 2D side scroller effect to it, but then it's got some like 2.5D elements and then some 3D. It's got a locked camera at times, but then sometimes you're able to, man, the camera I wish would just open up a little bit more, right? Like we're almost in that whole 3D perspective. Just let me spin that camera around, but it kind of held me up in some spots. But overall, dude, the creatures I think were one of the most exciting parts about this game. Like that's what really kind of get me going. And then when you get into the story, this is where things started to kind of go downhill for me. You talk about being a light RPG. It is really just a fetch quest on top of a fetch quest on top of a fetch quest, because as you talk to one individual, like, okay, well, for me to give you this, you need to go get this for me first. And then that item you need is actually tied to another character, which then needs you to go get something else for somebody, which is then tied to, I started off with one quest on the menu, and then I dropped to like 10 in like 30 seconds. Because every time I talk to somebody, they just wanted me to go grab them something else so I can get an item from them. And that's really where it started to kind of pull me out of the experience, Corey. That's where it started really going south. And it was unfortunate because at the end of the day, that art style, the world building that they've created in here, this voxel, beautiful landscape, was what hooked me. And the story with no voiceover dialogue in it put it under where I wanted to be at, right? And it kind of just pulled me out. As much as I was trying to hopefully get sucked into this world that I was really kind of falling in love with, it didn't really kind of hook me enough to keep me wanting to go back to play more, right? When I put it down, dude, I wasn't thinking about the game, honestly, right? Like that's what it comes down to. Yeah. When I put it down, I don't want to put it down. I want to keep going, but yeah. What are your thoughts, Corey?
That's the tough part, man, because you get drawn in immediately by this world. And like I said, and you said, this is an RPG kind of light. It's meant for people that haven't necessarily played this style of game before. It's very introductory in that sense. The tutorial, like we said, kind of felt like a game from the 90s, the way they set it up. But again, they laid it out. It's easy to understand. There isn't a whole lot of, special controls here. The combat was done pretty good. I wouldn't say it's easy, spot on, but it is solid for this game. It is easy. It's straightforward. And that's kind of the name of the game with this one, is that it is just straightforward. They are holding your hand a little bit through the way here. It tells a fairly interesting story, but it is geared towards the younger crowd, I think. People, a little bit older like us, Drew, aren't necessarily getting as hooked into this one, but I could see a younger crowd really, really loving this game just because it feels magical when you're in this world. The audio is there the entire time. Unfortunately, no voiceovers, like you said, so we are reading a lot of dialogue here, and if you don't read all that dialogue, you are going to miss some clues, and you will end up walking around a lot looking for what you need. And that's just kind of where this circles back to, because in this game, Drew, I was circling back a ton. I mean, I was looking for things, and I'm going back through worlds I've been in, and I mean, I enjoyed going through them, but I don't need to keep going back through them looking for stuff because I walked right by something that I didn't necessarily see. So there is some frustration with that, but again, overall, it is a solid game. There isn't too many, issues. I didn't run into any graphical problems or anything like that. It's more just how this game maybe didn't tailor quite towards us as it might for another crowd.
That's fair. Corey, you touched on the tutorial, and it is one of the most basic drawn out tutorials, and it really, man, if it could have been implemented in a more natural, progressive way throughout the game, I think it would have been a little bit easier to get into. But they literally go, okay, A does this, X does that, you look left, look right, and it just I'm like, man, we've been playing games for a long time. Even the younger crowd can figure this out, right? Like, I don't doubt that they're able to competent enough to get through that portion of it. They maybe it's just to introduce that as we play the game feels a lot more smooth and not so, okay, you have 10 minutes set aside just for a tutorial. It kind of hurts a little bit that first overall experience, right? You just want to kind of get in and start playing the game and then learn the mechanics as it goes. But overall, dude, at the end of the day, for me, without that voiceover experience, you can literally just put on a podcast and play the game. And that's it, because at the end, and all of it is combat noises and the audio, which sound great, but at the end of the day, without that voiceover dialogue, it's just kind of that little bit of magic that's missing, I think, right? So for me, dude, I gotta wrap this up with a 6. It's it could have been something just a little bit higher there, I thought. What about yourself?
Yeah, I've been having a tough time figuring out what I want to score this game, because I think it is a solid title. The graphics, the audio are just chef's kiss. I mean, they are great, and that's the biggest draw here. The story is solid. It's not for everyone. Like you said, this game is simple, and they keep it really simple all the way through. So that isn't going to be for everybody. But I think there's going to be enough people that are going to be interested in this and going to get caught up in the magical world that is Ravenlok. And honestly, Drew, if I got to score this one, I'm going to give it a 7. And it's based on, the fact that this one just has, the solid bones of a game. It might not be completely full. There might be some content that we want to see, but I think there's enough there for the general audience to really enjoy this one.